a choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a ride.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expanding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality. Let's fuck this chicken.
Michael Kameron, welcome to the show, man. I am so excited to speak with you about your book, High Strangeness, a lifetime of alien and paranormal encounters, which is a flying disc press jam. We love them, and we, Philip Mansell, represent. Also forward by Paul Sinclair, which is cool as shit. That's great.
Yeah.
So you have a fascinating story, my friend. I cannot wait to introduce you to the audience here. We're talking about hooded figures in the house, missing time, men in black, out-of-body experiences, UFO activity, and some understandable trust issues, my friend, which we are going to talk all about. So before we get any further, I suppose I just might as well let you and the audience know that your book and all the ways to find you are going to be located down in the show description. My friend, how are you, dude?
I'm very well, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, well, let's just begin at the beginning. So tell us about your story, man, because you've got a fascinating and interesting and wild and in some ways horrific story. So where would you like to begin?
From the beginning, I guess. I was born and raised in the East End of London. I was born to a strict Roman Catholic family. I was brought up as a Roman Catholic. We're brought up and educated by nuns and priests. A little bit of quite difficult being the person I am, and being in a camp of, quite strict Roman Catholic priests and nuns. But I was raised in the 1970s in London, and when I was born, I was born premature. I was in hospital quite a long time, an unexpected child, and I actually grew up in the grounds of a school, and my book focuses primarily on this particular house, my childhood home, and in the grounds of the school, and then just in the immediate area. So it focuses on my childhood and early teenage years, probably 16 up to 16, 17 years old. And, the house that I was brought up in when I was a child, or when I was a baby, should we say, from some of the experiences that was occurring to me at the time were become more apparent later on when I was growing up, so my family shared some of the experiences with me when I was at a particular age, and they were told me that when I come back from the hospital, the atmosphere in the house began to change. So there was a lot of poltergeist activity in that house where previously before it was none. So there was, disembodied voices talking to my mum when she was in the house alone, calling her name. And, when she looked around, there was nobody about. My brothers, I got 3 brothers, Francis, Kevin and Sean. Sean's 2 years older than me. And Francis and Kevin are quite a lot older than me and Sean. Francis was, in bed one day, and we had a large oak wooden wardrobe, pushed on top of him whilst he was in bed, and it was quite heavy. Yeah, it would take probably 2 people to push it over when it's full up.
Or one angry ass ghost, right?
Yeah, he wasn't injured. He was just shocked, And Kevin at one time was coming up the staircase, and something pushed past him and pushed him down the stairs. So, the activity in the house was, first of all, it was mild before that, but then it started to get a little bit more dangerous, more sinister. Somebody could, possibly be hurt. And in the house itself, the walls in the house, they were solid. And in the night time, there was this constant banging on the walls, and it's like an echo, like a stereo surround system. It sounded like, and there was a bang, 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 and it was echoing because the walls in the house were solid. So if you were to just knock them with your fist, it would just create a thud, like hardly any sound at all, But these were echoing, and my dad used to get up in the middle of the night, every night, go downstairs and search for, in his head, I guess trying to reason it in your left brain, the logic is that there's could be possibly somebody in the house, but there was never nobody there, and it was only one time when he basically swore, shouted out and swore that the sound stopped. It was a little while after that my parents then sought help from the church. My dad had a lot of friends, you see, in the church. He was the schoolkeeper, he looked after the school, but he wasn't an ordinary schoolkeeper, I don't think. He had a lot of friends in high places, in the police and in the military. He knew people at the Vatican, high up people in the church. He was also, he was a Freemason, a Grand Knight Freemason. But so somebody came into the house anyway, a priest, and he walked through the house. And as far as I know, he blessed the house. And a little while after that, the activity began to, die away, really. But when I was a baby, my parents told me that when I was in my cot, they did see some glowing type beings looking down at me in my cot. And there was also, I guess what would be called, orbs of light floating around where my cot was and moving in and out of the wall, or going through the windows. And they didn't really know what it was. And I remember my brothers later on in life telling me the same stuff, when you were a baby, there was all this strange activity around you. So that's pretty much what was happening around that time.
That's wild, brother. Let me ask you before we go any further here. So your dad was the one that was the Freemason and had all of. Okay, so with your dad's activities, was he ever in the military or anything like that?
During World War II, yeah, he was a flight engineer on board the planes. He actually was when I was doing research into him, he was actually trained on the Hereford site, which is the SAS site now for the Special Forces. At one time, it was owned by the Rothschild family, this particular location. My mum, she built Lancaster bombers during World War II in the munitions factories, but she was very, very intelligent. So, she was promoted to the offices where the men were. Now it's not a big deal, but during them times, it was a big deal to be promoted off the shop floor to go into the offices and work alongside where the men were.
Yeah. So do you think that whatever your dad was up to, maybe that there's a bigger story there, that maybe that has something to do with the activity that you've experienced in any way connected?
Yeah, it's speculated by a lot of people that that's probably the case. My family were very secretive. But during those times, there was a lot of families after the war that were secretive. But I think there was more going on, that I didn't see.
And we're not talking shit here. I'm just curious because there's a lot of military families who, like, let's say, all the Laurel Canyon idea of the CIA infiltration into the music, and that it was actually a counterculture insertion from the CIA. So also military parents, though, had everything to do with those kids. So all of their, like the door, Jim Morrison's dad was in CIA, all the stuff. So you look at that kind of stuff, and you just think that the parents are usually in the military, some sort of special programs or something like that, and something wild and extreme happens to the children. So I'm just curious if you've correlated maybe or thought about, not that it's the sole portion of it, but that maybe your dad like volunteered you for something, you know, at a level of like sort of all of his family is volunteer because he's a company man and he's in the process. And again, we're not talking shit here. Is he still kicking about? Is he still around?
No, he passed when I was 15.
Do you mind if I ask how?
He had a massive heart attack. We argued on the night before he died, and then when I woke up, he was dead.
I don't think you had anything to do with that. Do you think you had anything to do with that?
At the time, I did, yeah. It
Sure.
took me a
How do
long
you feel
while
about
to.
it now, though?
I'm okay about it now, but it took a long while for me to understand that it wasn't me that caused his death. You know, I think he was just highly stressed. He actually given up smoking a little while before that. He'd been smoking since he was 8 years old. he smoked 100 a day.
It can be traumatic to the body, you know, if you just stop all that sudden, like stopping drinking all of a sudden, if you've done it for decades.
And he did. He gave up on a dime, so to speak. You know, rather than do it in a slow process, he just done it like that. But I think, you know, it probably took its toll on him. He wasn't very old.
Man,
he was only in his 50s.
Well, and just simply because the military and the Masonic component to this, brother. Plus, I mean, all of this showed up in the house. That's wide. So, what's the history of the house? I mean, we're gonna get so far into this, but what do you have any history on the house itself? Is it the grounds?
Yeah, when I was doing research into it, I didn't know back then. But when I was doing research into there is quite a big history around this. I mean, in the area where I grew up as well, it was bombed a lot. It was during the Blitz. So this area of London was basically dust. So in this particular area of where the school grounds was and the location of my house, it was actually on the site of a leper's burial ground from Roman times. It was my house was on the cemetery where they put lepers outside of the city.
Jesus.
And they died. So in that spot, that location of the plot of land where my house was, the cemetery was underneath that.
I am curious to see who knew that before you bought the house or before your family moved in. How long had your family lived in that house? Was it like a passed down from generation to generation thing?
No. It was actually a new site. My dad worked in a school belonging to the Roman Catholic Church just up the road, which was the old school. And I would imagine that's got quite a good history to it, you know.
Yeah.
Strange history.
Sure.
But then in 1970, they built, just say 68, but they opened the school in 1970, this location. So it was built. At the time, there was nothing on there. It was just, just a ground, empty ground. But it does go back. It goes back. It's got an history that goes back quite a few centuries, you know. So if you look under the layers and layers of that site and the activity, the residue energy of that site, it's going to be quite a lot of blood shed.
Yeah. I mean, plus the leper, you know, I'm thinking of how horrible it was in the back of the day, how people fucking used to be buried with bells attached to them. And I don't think they figured this out in Roman times.
No.
And the reason was because they started chucking people in the ground that were just passed out or sleeping. And they thought they were dead, so they'd bury these motherfuckers, but they needed to attach a bell to them so that they could ring it to say, hey, dig me out. Terrifying. I think that's it's fucking terrifying, man. So then you think about maybe not all the lepers that were tossed in the ground were necessarily done yet. And then you think of like some horrible shit happening there, plus a bombing, which is already traumatic. It's trauma on that land alone. But then also maybe even before that, there's this theory about these resets that occur here, or at least that time is different and history is absolutely different than what they're telling us. And to this component, there could be sort of something much grander that was there before, because something that's said about the world wars, one of the thesis hypothesizes is that they're just carpet bombing everything to destroy the old ways of things and the old world, right? So maybe there was some super dope temples or some amazing stuff there that they just sort of wiped out with a reset with what World War II was and all the bombings and everything like that, because they were just leveling shit. So again, a lot of trauma occurred in the area. Your dad's involvement, not only the Masonic Order, but also the military and some deep shit. The sites that he was working on, I think it's very interesting, man. Now, we're gonna stop talking about your dad. I want to get back to your story, but I am just curious if you'd ever considered it, and the land itself, and even the school. So, in fact, moving on with your story here, tell us about the school.
Yeah, the school is where I went to. It's a junior school for boys and girls, Roman Catholic boys and girls. There was events that happened in the school itself as well, and then I knew the school grounds well. I knew it like the back of my hand. I used to spend a lot of time in the grounds of the school. What I was going to say to you is that in the large school playground itself, I learned recently from an outside source that there was as a child an active Stargate opened up underneath the ground of that school.
What? Like in a cavern or something? A man-made cavern? A cavern? What are we talking about here?
It was, on a spiritual level, it was an active Stargate that was opened up, and it was active. And when I was a child, I'm not sure if it still is now, but I was told recently outside of the body that in the grounds of the school there was a large playground and a smaller one. It was in the larger one underneath, etherically, spiritually, astrally, there was an active one. And I was told as well that when I come back here, I actually come here to close that on a spiritual level.
So spiritual stargates under playgrounds, disgusting. What is the point of that, if you don't mind?
I would say I'm wondering though, if in some way, due to the bombings and the activity, if in some ways something breaks through all that violence, it creates a crack almost like in a mirror, opening up, like a portal or doorway for other species to come through.
And then
that's
plop
possible.
A playground on top of it, so that these young kids are exposed, and maybe this is where kids are picking up their invisible friends from. You know what I mean? Is these playgrounds, Stargate, horrible portals that then they're taking them home with them, sort of like whatever it was followed you home. Wow, this is wild, dude. I mean, how sick and fucked up. Like it's just weird. Go ahead, please. It's just weird, Michael.
It's strange, but if anything's done, intentionally, you have to understand what's going through their heads when they're doing that. It's like a psychops, program to dismantle the energy, I guess.
Yeah. So how did you recognize it and clear it out?
At the time, I didn't. As a child, I mean, or as a teenager, I didn't know it was there. I know there was probably gates or doorways opened in my house from where these beings were able to enter. But for the Stargate, I didn't understand about that until much later. Very recently, I've actually become aware of it.
Oh,
that
okay.
It was there. Yeah, I didn't know.
Have you been able to go by and lock that bitch up yet?
I've been told I have. I have no awareness of that, but I've been the individuals that have told me that are well high placed outside, shall we say, the body. But they did say I have, but I didn't do it as a child.
Tell us about your out-of-body experiences. First of all, what's that like? I had one, but it was a DMT-induced. So that was sort of a bilocating thing, but I didn't feel like I was a body. It was really weird. But what is out-of-body experiences like for you, and when did they start?
I've always been able to move outside of my body quite easily. As a child, I've been told I never entered my body completely until I was 13 years old.
Sort of like an autopilot that was just being indoctrinated within the system and then like set up to survive here, and then your soul hopped in? No.
I was here, but I was out of the body quite a lot. It wasn't my spiritual body, I've been told, is bigger than my physical body. The reason being is because I've been identified in one of my lifetimes as one of the original giants from ancient Greece.
Cool.
So my body, my spirit body, as I've been told, is bigger than the physical body that I'm in now, the container. So I've often felt that I've always been leaning, sort of, you know, and they said it's true because my energetic body is bigger than this huge body. And they said that during ancient Greece, I was one of the original giants. And when I'm outside of the body, there is actually a giant that I come into contact with who I spent a lifetime with, who is a friend, and he knows me as somebody who shared that life with him. So because of this reason, they explained to me that when I was up until the age of 13, I was always outside of the body because it wouldn't fit inside this body.
Whoa,
so at the age of 13, they were able to seal me into this body so that I wasn't slipping in and out all the time, so to speak.
Where were you when you weren't in your body because you couldn't fit in it? And what was driving it while you weren't able to fit in it?
I don't know about that part, but I do know I was outside. I was often in the, you know, what human beings would consider to be hell, the very lowest parts of the astral realms, where often the darker souls exist. And apparently, when I've been there as an adult as well, but I used to do soul rescue work. So I would go there and rescue souls that were coming closer to becoming aware that they've actually done things wrong, and that they're not in prison. They put themselves there through their own energy, you know. So their energy is attracted to this place. It pulls them there. You know, people say that, you know, religious people think that, you know, God, whatever you want to call this particular being, is punishing you, and there's no punishment. Your energy pushes you to where you need to be. So you're basically like Plato's cave. You know, you think you're a prisoner, and you're not really a prisoner. Your energy creates the circumstances that trap you there. You know, you can leave at any time, but it's just that mindset. You know, understanding that you've done something wrong, and looking into, you know, looking for forgiveness, and to own it. And it's not a process where you will leave straight away. You will leave gradually, because you wouldn't be able to move higher than where you are, because it's a graduation. It's a gradual step, a baby step. So what we would do is we'd work with archangels who were there, and we would go in basically and speak to these souls to make them, you know, some of them are not even aware of why they're there. They've just lost that, you know, understanding. But we would move them closer and closer to what would be, you know, the light, to a higher plane of existence. You know, we would then hand them across to archangel energies, who would then take them to the next level. So as a child, I seem to be in this particular realm quite a lot, doing this type of work. And as a teenager and as a young adult, I'm not doing it now. I've finished it. I've finished that work, doing that. At one time, I was contracted to do that.
From a perspective, I've recently had Howdy Mikowski on, and I know, guys, you're going to hear his name for a little while. He's rang a bell. His perspective is rang a bell, and that name just sums up sort of what I'm about to talk about. So, from a perspective, what are your thoughts on that? The entities connecting with you and anybody in any respect, no matter what they are just, let's say, the same thing, maybe archons or mud shadows, as Castaneda called it, like this one thing that can turn into your adversary, right? It knows you so well that it knows exactly how to tailor an experience to get it to do what you want. And what it wants from you is your energy, right? So it's an exchange of sorts. It gives you an experience, which is not necessarily always a good one, which pays out well for the entity. But the point is that when listening to your story, I filter through many perspectives. I have no beliefs on this place. I have no idea what the fuck's going on. But from the one off of book I just freshly read is that what occurred is, and just curious about your thoughts on this, that when you were a child, this place is like hell. Okay, it's not necessarily the levels of hell down there where you were shown or taken, which I've got a point about in a minute, but it's a hell in a sense. It's a hell in the sense that you are abducted. If you have a myriad of experiences here that may pretty much confirm what I'm talking about here, but you have a myriad of things here that you can't control. There's a lot of things outside of the idea that it's a school because of the lack of memory of retention from one life to another, which would be very useful if I knew how to like sword fight really dope right now. Like that'd be cool, right? But I don't, maybe from my samurai days. But the point is that from that perspective, what someone may interpret from your story is that this is a soul trap bound area, and what was occurring is that you were tricked as a child to help souls that were possibly escaping, maybe got out in a void and were just out of the matrix and didn't want to get in the soul trap, and you invited them back in somehow, right? Not maliciously, and you had no fucking clue what you were doing. This is again just the idea. It goes in, you're now ushering these souls back in from a child's body, by the way, which is pretty fucked up that they use kids. And then now they can jam you back into the body you were forced to come back in here and live in as this vessel of a bigger being. They needed to shove you down smaller to contain you into this prison, right? Which will mean that you're always this Alice in the house, but the house won't break. You know what I'm saying? As you eat that thing that says eat me and you grow huge and that roof is supposed to pop off, but it doesn't. So it's like this confinement literally within your body of your energetic body, but also you were ushering these folks in as as a more fucked up way of spending your time before you were jammed into your own prison. You were helping out others be enslaved as well, is the idea. I'm not saying you did it. And then that's what this place is, like this soul trap reincarnation thing. And the light is actually like, it ties to the moon, but not necessarily has to. But it's the mechanism of which souls are captured and then reintroduced into this reality via trickery, via fuckery, really. It's not altruistic at all. And then the arc in archons is really, arc in archangel rather means archons. So then therefore it would be this trickster entity that makes you feel like what you're doing is awesome and altruistic, but really it's like this thing that's feeding off of your energy. Because if you're putting out bad energy, it's loving that from you. What are your thoughts on that? That perspective that as a child you were sort of used and then now shoved into this prison that is this body because you were this badass giant thing.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from with that, and that there is some truth in that in regards to the reincarnation process. The Earth that you're on now is not the true Earth anyway. The humans don't come from this planet anyway. This planet was created by artificial intelligence, as I've been told recently, and every single planet in the solar system are information centers that the ET energies like the Greys, the reptilians use to create the matrix here.
Like
to
a
keep
filter,
humans,
like the Saturn Moon matrix.
Humans, yeah, to keep. But there is a place on the outside of this universe where there is a location where human beings were first seeded. When they were on this location, when they were in this location, they were actually like, what in the MyLab communities called super soldiers. They were connected to source. They had their energies, like you were just talking about, for the reincarnational process, why we lose these memories, why we don't have these memories of these other lifetimes, and particular skill sets. Why do we have this? This part of ourselves where we know we've done certain things, but we can't do them here. So we were in this particular location. I can only say, from what I've been told, it's on the outer regions of this universe. It's still there now. It's off bounds. They're all life streams, whether you're positive or negative. You're not allowed there unless you're escorted there by somebody, what would be considered to be an ascended master or an archangel or one of the higher dimensional beings. It's off bounds. But what I do know is that when the souls were seated there, they had all of their abilities. Something happened created. There was I think it was from a war, perhaps. And those that won that war, they then moved these human beings, superhuman beings, off of this world, and they moved them to this world. And, that you've had this reincarnational process ever since, where you're basically reincarnated and recycled back into this matrix. And everything that's happened, in the ancient past is playing itself out now in this time zone. I'm being given an opportunity to go to this location under escort, of course. I'm not sure for what reason, but I'm hoping to be doing that next year.
Physically, they're going to take you, or is it an astral body thing?
No, it'd be outside the body. Yeah, for me. Yeah.
Okay, well, be careful. And when you go, will you report back to us and tell us? I have a few questions, actually, before you go. So when they let you know when you're going, will you check back with me and let me scribble a couple questions on a napkin and send them to you?
Yeah, I don't know why I'll be going there, but, I don't have to go. It's a choice. I can go. But,
what do you expect to find there?
I don't know, to be fair. I don't know.
Have they told you anything about it more than that
no,
you're going?
They just told me that it's, I just know it's a place where human beings existed at one time. The original seedings were not on this planet. It might come to a shock to people, but I think they'll find out at some point that this planet is not their original home. It's just been told throughout the centuries that it is.
I think a lot of us feel that way. So we're stuck in this matrix thing. It is a soul reincarnation trap. How do you break it, or do we want to break it? Like, what are you being told about that? That is it a good thing that we're here? Are we really fucking here to learn lessons? And do you trust what you're, being told by these things?
You know what? At one time I used to think that, that we're here to learn lessons. I don't believe that no more. I don't think the school of learning, hypothesis is the one that is true. I think it's one that's it wants you to make you feel like you're here for that reason. And, I don't think that now.
Learning is inevitable. It's the memory wipes that suck.
Yeah, I think it's a charade, I think it's a smokescreen to enable us to feel good about being here, so to speak. But I don't think that's the reality, really.
Yeah, lately I don't disagree.
I think there's, I think there's a lot more people thinking that now, that they, about even with the reincarnational process, do we really need it? Is it something we really need? I'm not so sure.
Which could be, I guess, a level of ascension in itself, right? You figure out that, yes, you can come back here, do all this shit, but the way that it's structured may be not appealing for your growth anymore. And maybe you literally have outgrown the way that you grow here. You know what I mean?
I don't think many people will, you have the movement of the ascension movement. I don't think you're going to find that it's going to go that way for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of a metaphor.
There's a process where you can move yourself from the earth completely, where you don't need to come back here. But it's a long process. It's an alchemical process. What you can achieve, but not many people achieve it because it's quite hard to do. It might come a shock to most people to understand that from my experiences and interactions with archangel type beings, they don't want you to have disclosure in regards to, the big disclosure with UFOs at this moment. Because in the UFO community, you have to ask yourself the question, who is that disclosure for? Is it for humanity, or is it for the people that have been pissed off over the years by members of their family or friends or associates who have ridiculed them over the facts or point that the people or occupants in these craft are extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional beings? And, I've spoken to quite a few people in the ufology world, that have had these sightings and experiences, and they tell me that, that's probably one of the biggest reasons they want disclosure, to give the finger basically to those people that laughed at them. But the archangels have told me that when I've come into contact with these outside of the body, that they don't want to have they don't want humanity to have disclosure just yet because they're not ready for it. For the majority of people outside of these communities, they won't be able to take it. For anyone who thinks it won't have an impact on society and on the world, you will be wrong. It will have a huge impact on the social condition of all human beings that don't have the experiences that we have. It will create a lot of problems in the world. For the UFO community, it will be great, because that's what you've always wanted. But for the rest of the world that don't give a damn about the UFO subjects or spiritual subjects, it will have the greatest impact. And it will cause problems. It will cause problems. Anyone who knows about anything like that, they will tell you the same as I am. It will cause problems, But it's, but then you have to think, are they saying that because they do believe that, or are they saying it for another reason? A more sinister reason? What do you think?
It's always the question. It's always the question.
What do you think?
I think that there's a sinister angle to this. Absolutely. I think you can tell by the way that it's being framed in whatever they're calling disclosure is by the fact that they have military presence that are the ones presenting the information as if they're the authority on it. And they're not. They're 1% of, I feel, what's maybe observed that's going on that can really do something about it. And whatever they are telling you, if they do know way more than that, is not going to ever come out. I don't think so. I don't think that there's a game here that's meant to be won. I think there's a game here that's meant to be played. And this is just another way of playing the game in all regards. It's just, hey, look over here, look at this. We're going to give you something that you've been wanting for a while, but it's divisive as ever. And there's so many levels to this place and how the game is played. And again, I think this, it's all fuckery, to be honest with you. I think it's all fuckery.
The thing is, though, you often hear, not in our communities, you often get people, they're very passionate about it. And they're telling people, they're talking about the general public who are outside of our communities to wake up, I'm
not one of those, though. I don't care if people wake up or not.
No, but I'm going to just explain, though, what I mean, though, to you. I'm not either, but,
right.
It's, we're on the same page here, but it's, what I'm trying to explain is they want these people to wake up, but don't worry about them waking up. Most of the time, you're never going to get them to wake up unless they have experiences. And even if they have experiences, it's an individual thing. Just work on yourself. Work on yourself in your life. Work on yourself spiritually, because it's through that spiritual source of energy that we will break free from these chains. It will, that's the way out.
How do you trust the sources of spiritual information you get, though? Because I've gone down a lot of rabbit holes with this, and I don't trust any of it. So, and I've got an inner compass and an inner light that's awesome, and it works great, but I've still got deep questions that I'd like some feedback on that I'm not, getting in the form of answers I'd like.
It's that's a really good, really good question. I think it's one that we all ask ourselves, really. What do we trust? How do we trust it? We got so much technology now that is, which can create false realities. It's difficult. I think the only way around that really is what feels like it's right. If it feels like it's right or if it feels like it's wrong, you have to trust some part of yourself at some point to move through that. Otherwise, where will we be? Yeah. We're always going to be at stalemates, aren't we? I mean, if someone's doing something good or if someone's doing something bad, it's, action speaks louder than words. It's how you feel about it at the time. To trust yourself in that respect. But it is a really, really good question. And I think it's a difficult one to answer, to be honest.
Do you think it's answerable?
I probably is. I think everyone.
That's what pisses me off.
I think everyone.
It's answerable, but I don't have access to it either yet, or just it's all around me, but I can't perceive it. One of those.
I think everyone, it's an individual thing. Everyone will have their own take on it and how they, perceive it. And if you're, I would say if it's an energy that feels right and it's helping people, or it's, it can't be that bad, can it?
Well, but helping people is subjective, right? Bill Gates thinks he's helping people, but allegedly he was killed in 2013 in Africa because he was like murdering people, and people called him out on his bullshit, and they murdered him and his wife. And then what we have is doubles. Check it out, Kevin Kline's Melinda Gates. It's a lot of fun. So you have a lot of altruism posed as something that's beneficial for people, but I don't see it as that. And I have way too many questions for anything that's saying, hey, this is for your benefit, but you can't question it, right? That's bullshit to me. Or anything that hides its true intentions or presence from me because it thinks that I can't handle the truth, kind of a thing. Well, that's another issue I've got, is that this subjective sort of curation of information that goes out. To what you said about that people can't handle it, and that's what you've been told. It's like, well, we had the Orwell thing in the 30s that told us that as well, but that was, again, a propaganda campaign. So you have misinformation being used as foundation for justification of a bunch of nonsense, you see? And so whenever we get to those kinds of questions with this shit, that's where I've got the trust issues. Like you, man, with all of your experiences you've got probably just as bad a trust issues as I've got with not only this place, but you've got interaction with something that you do have tangible, I guess, feelings about, but I don't. And so therefore you've gotten a chance to interact with things in a way that I haven't gotten to ask the questions to yet. So it's just fascinating to me.
I think it's good, though, to question all the time, but, if someone says to you, you can't have this, and why can't you? I'm pretty sure, you're intelligent enough to make your own choice, whether you can understand it or not.
Maybe, but what if the intelligence or the idea of intelligence is actually the issue? It's that I'm not asking the right questions, which is in itself maddening, right? Is the idea of throwing so many darts at a dartboard, but none of them being a bullseye, or all of them being just slightly being eluded in a different direction because I'm not asking it, phrasing it, or have the right energy behind it. It's this idea that I've got deep ass questions, and I'd love for some goddamn alien to land out here and for me to talk to the thing. I would not get on its craft. I don't want to go for some fucking ride. It can do no Reiki on me or anything. But I've got questions, dude. And so this is why I say, if you are invited to this fucking place, where way to get on the VIP list, by the way. If you do get invited to this place, and when they come scoop you up, I've got a list of questions, and I wouldn't mind if they came and dropped you off on the way. You guys make some extra time. We don't record it or anything. I'm just, for my own edification, you come by, hang out, and let's talk to these fucking things.
Yeah, but the thing with that is, am I going to have that awareness of it when I'm going there? Well, I mean, when I come back, will they, will I still have that awareness? Will they take me there and then come back and I don't have the answers? Maybe I can attach a camera to myself.
And is even that a bunch of bullshit, right? Is even
Maybe.
That a bunch of bullshit? It's just fascinating when people are contacted by something so amazing that it's obviously super cool and dope. And again, I don't have a frame of reference for this. I have an imagination for what you experience, but not a frame of reference from my own observation. So it's interesting to me when you get contacted by so many cool things, dude. I absolutely want to talk to you about this list of stuff here. But I find it fascinating. And if you get the opportunity and they do let you bring some shit back, which, again, the dictation of the curation of what you can remember and not, and because it's not useful and because you'll ruin the game, is a horseshit, again, in my mind. But that's because I don't experience it. They never
let you bring anything back anywhere, anytime, it's like.
But do you think that it's because the information is so crazy that you can't explain it in this mind? Do you think that that's a possibility?
It's possible. I think anything's
just
possible.
Too, like, what the fuck for this reality? It's like a dream or something, so it switches off real quick because it's not applicable here.
It's possible.
But then I would say, like, then what am I learning over there that I can't remember that I also can't remember here? Does that make sense? This is a weird fucking thing, Michael. This is a weird ass place, bro. Okay,
it's probably one of the weirdest places around, to be fair.
This is all I've got to compare it to, so I'm going to agree with you, my friend. But it's fun because folks like you are out here, dude, and we get to hang out and we have to have these badass conversations in a judgment-free way. I somehow have worn the same color as you for this, and check the video version in the show description, guys, if y'all want to check that out. Let's talk about I've got a list here, dude. Hooded figures, missing time, Men in Black. Where would you like to start out of those?
I can talk about the MIB. The MIB came through after probably 2 encounters that I had with my brother Sean at the time. This followed it after the 2 experiences that me and Sean had. One was with what would be known as a daylight disc, a typical flying saucer. At the time we were playing football, soccer, I guess, in the outside the school grounds where we lived, or the schoolhouse, childhood home. We were on the grounds of the school grass playing football. It was in the summer holidays. The school had closed, and we were kicking the ball around, and Sean then stopped and said, "Why don't we go for a walk around the grounds?" So the school was closed. There were cleaners there during the day when my dad, who oversees that in the school, so it closed for 6 weeks, the school. And I remember it was the summer holidays, and it was a busy working week. So in the outside of the school itself, there was lots of warehouses. There was a huge police station there, which is still there to this day, which is one of the biggest in London. And there was lots of activity. So it was a busy working day. And we went off around where would be the infants building, and the school library, the outside of the school library, and the huge, the main school gymnasium, the hall. And I remember there's 2 sort of stone staircases that led up onto 2 platforms. And Sean went up onto one of these platforms, and I was just below. I was actually kneeling down. I can remember kneeling down. I was playing with red fire ants, just watching them play, watching them moving around. And I remember Sean calling out to me. I had my back to him. I was kneeling down. I had my back to him, and I heard him call out my name. And he said, "What is that? What is it?" And he was pointing up at the sky. So when I looked around and then went up the stairs towards where he was standing, he was looking up, staring up at the sky, which was, clear. It was a sunny day. And there was this object, far up in the sky, which was, at the time, I couldn't see properly what it was, but it was shiny. It was, silver, bright metal. But I think it was shining because I think the sun was, shining off it of its metal. And it was coming closer and closer to us, and at that time, both of us entered into, like an altered state of consciousness, I guess. Like what the investigative researcher Jenny Randalls coined the Oz factor, so we entered into this type of bubble, this energetic bubble where everything else around us was, vanished. So we were both, me and Sean, just in this, in this bubble, I guess. And
if you don't mind, real quick. So do you think that when you go into, because you just blew my mind with this, do you think that when you enter the Oz factor, you enter the Oz factor as an area bubble rather than the something overtaking you that's in the area? So the way that I visualized it was you walking into a bubble you don't know that you're in, but you can see everything outside of you. The only difference is it's like an isolation chamber of audio. So you can't hear anything, but does somebody from the outside not see you because you disappear? And could this be the explanation for why people just vanish the fuck out?
I think it is. I think there is a lot to what you said in there is, a lot of that's correct, what you just said.
So if you've experienced the Oz effect, chances are you've been inside one of these gravity well bubble type things where basically anything is possible.
I think so. But Jenny Randalls explains it. That's why is it, like you said, why is it that some people could be in a crowd? You could have 10 people, 20 people, and out of that 20 people, 5 people will only see this phenomena, where the rest of these people just don't see it, even though they're side by side. So what is it that allows these people to see it, other than these other people? What is it that why can they see it?
The presence of anomalous activity, the phenomena in some way, dogmen, UFOs, because it's related to many types of paranormal and ufology and everything like that. And it seems that maybe that is, it can be like shot at you almost like a tractor beam. Do you think that's possible? Like it can bilocate that type of environment to include you from a distance? Does that make sense?
I think it can. Yeah, that's good. That's a good.
Because then maybe this would be what establishes the telepathy across the distances that people experience in craft that are flying by. We've had a lot of people talk about that they get messages from their mind of craft. Hey, we're right over here. Or, hey, everything's all right.
Well, you get that now a lot of the time with the CE5 communities.
Right.
They know, don't you? They suddenly have an image or thought in their head. Look that way, and then they see the craft. So there is something in that, I would say.
Yeah. It's like a connection. And it's almost like the Invisible Woman from the Fantastic Four. Are you familiar with that comic?
Yeah.
And she can like shoot like a force field bubble out that can protect not only her, but like you over there. And it's like this cup string thing like you do from the tree houses and shit. You had a cup and a string and you can talk to your buddy. But it's like this connection that establishes you between you and the phenomena, whatever it is.
Well, I've got a friend who's, he's like me. We're considered to be twins, not of the same family, but some people believe that we're twins, but we have had a lot of experiences together as adults. But, he was able to, as an example, I was being threatened once by a group of 7 people, not because of this stuff, but just in general. And he moved in front of them and basically created an energetic bubble around them where they wasn't able to move. They were basically paralyzed.
But this dude did that?
Yeah. He's a MyLab.
Do you feel like you are?
I am a MyLab, yeah. I'm definitely 100% military abductee as well, yeah. And, and a lot what you find is alien abductees, not all of them, but most of them they do become MyLabs. That's the next step in their evolutionary process for this stuff.
Which makes it think that the aliens or whatever's contacting you, it either is aliens and they're in cahoots with the government, or it's not, it's the government posing as aliens and they're just doing this shit with the technology.
I think it's both. I think you'll find that. I think you'll find it's, in the beginning, in the earlier days, I would say it was the ETs. I think there's a lot more we see in the sky now, which is ours rather than theirs. And it's not way off to say that, because how many of us really know what the military have? Their technology. We wouldn't, would we? How many people can actually say that they really know what the military have behind closed doors? They can't say that. So it would be fair to say that people that are seeing specific craft in the sky would, especially in the UFO community, they would want it to be alien. But you can't really say that it is, can you? Because people, unless you're in the military or in black projects and you're aware of what they're doing, you're not going to be able to say for sure if that's one or the other. You're just not. It's understandable people want that, but you have to look at it, I think, from a different perspective. You got to keep it, you got to keep it real. And the government are definitely 100% involved with these type of activities. They do, they do create, scenarios where they blame the ET.
That's what disclosure is about, so they can fuck around and then blame the ET.
Yeah, they do that. But the thing is, there are more ET races on the Earth that don't like humans. This goes back to the ancient times.
Well, look at our representation. We haven't been given a fair shot with our leadership. This sucks.
I mean, if that was the case, if there was, there are a lot more, and some people don't like me saying this, but there are a lot more negative ET types on the Earth than there are good. There are good though, but let me emphasize, there are good, but they're not as active here at the moment. And the ones that are active here, the government are messing with them.
This is a silly place, Michael. What? Okay.
Tell
you what.
that's the thing that annoys people.
Well, a lot annoys me, buddy, but there you go. Okay, how old were you when you had your daytime summer sighting? The silver disc?
4 years old.
4 fucking years old. I can't even remember when I was 4 years old. I was super into X-Men. I know that. What about the second event? And then I want to talk to the Men in Black that as a result of these.
Yeah, I mean, some of my earlier experiences were with what would be invisible. My family thought would be invisible children. But they wasn't. They were adults, and they were later on in the 1990s when I started to sort of research this more about these experiences I was having. I come to the realization they were actually the Nordic type beings I was coming into contact with. So when I was about 3 and 4 years old, and I was having experiences in the house with these particular type of beings. But as I said, my parents used to think I had invisible friends that were children. These weren't children; these were adults, and these weren't normal adults. I used to have interactions with them quite a lot, and then there was a breaking off point where then they seemed to disappear, and then the greys come in. These particular beings, which I didn't know what they were called then. Like I couldn't articulate what these were. As a child, I just knew, obviously, I was having these experiences. And the experiences I had with these particular beings weren't good. But I was speaking to someone recently, and they put a new sort of, into play on, people often ask me about the Nordics, do you think that they're benevolent and they're good? My interactions with them seemed to be good, but there was times where I was, again, paralyzed or in an altered state of consciousness when I was having interactions with them. But then when I come out from this trance-like state, I was afraid, I was frightened, I felt something wrong happened. Something was wrong. And I was running. And every single time I had these experiences with these particular beings, there was this positiveness, but then there was this feeling of dread. Something was wrong. And as a child, a child knows, don't they? They do know. And so when I was running away and telling my parents, something's happened. I've seen something, so they were used to me doing that. And again, people ask me, what do you think, Michael? When do you think they were good, or do you think they were bad? And I'm on my thoughts on that are quite mixed. I can't say for sure to you. If I was to tell you, yes, they were good and positive, I would be lying to you. If I was to say, were they bad, I really don't know. But somebody did say to me, who was an abductee recently, that they actually refer to them as groomers who groom the children. They come in first, they groom the children, they set you up for the next stage, which was then the abduction from the greys. So, I've not heard that before, but I was thinking about it, and it makes sense, doesn't it?
As you were talking about it, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking that these Nordics pimped you out to some greys. Yeah. And that sucks, dude. That really, really sucks.
So I don't know what happened. I did have missing time when I was in the presence of these particular beings, but I don't know. I have no memory.
Yeah, some people could say that about priests in their community or Bill Cosby. So, yeah, I mean, it's not, if it's got to hide and it's got to knock you out to do what it's doing, I don't think it's a good thing. I don't know about you. What are your thoughts on that? If it's got to conceal its intentions and even the whole interaction?
Well, the thing with, I often get people, say to me, when I've done these interviews and that about the greys, I seem to have a mixture of people from, the new age communities who believe that the greys are good and they're positive, and somebody said to me, chat show host, that most of his guests they have the positive experiences as abductions. Well, and I had to point out what an abduction is. When you look at what an abduction is, or a kidnapping, it's not a good experience, is it? You only have to look No, it's not, because it's like, then, so if somebody, I like to explain, if somebody's coming into your house at night, they're breaking in your house, they put the parents to sleep, tie them up, and they take one of your children. That's going to be a kidnapping, isn't it? It's an abduction, a kidnapping. Then they take them out. The parents are basically going like, mad in their heads. What's happening to my child or children? They're then taken into a car to an undisclosed location. What are you going to do? Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Of course, it's not a good thing, because the thing you're going to do is, and you're going to be frantic as a parent, where that child's gone, what they're going to do to that child. Are you ever going to see that child again? This is the same thing what happens with abduction for a child that's abducted. That's the same thing that happens. So anyone who says to me, it's a positive experiences, I would have to say, sorry, you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, to be fair, positive is subjective. So let's say that there are some people who like getting their balls stepped on really hard, and they're really into that. You know what I mean? So they're like, positive experience for 5 stars. But maybe you walk out of that place like bloody balls and be like, guys, what the fuck is going on here? This is horrible, right? So subjective opinions are at play here. Just to recognize positive and negative are different, and subjective is all we got to do here to move on. But good call. Absolutely. It's fucked up, dude.
It is, but it's not subjective.
And no judgment on people who like to get their balls stepped on, by the way, for the audience. I'm not judging anybody, but please continue.
It's not subjective, though, for a child. The child doesn't have a say in it. The child's not willingly going. They've been taken. And, for them, even today as an adult, sometimes you think, if you're an adult and you're having these experiences, are they going to bring me back? You
think of the Travis Walton case. Dude was gone for like 5 days. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And think of the people that don't come back, like you said, and what happens to them, Well,
I got an idea what happens to them. I would say that pretty much most of them go into military bases, into the deep underground military bases, and never come back.
What's done to them down there? Just like, what have you heard? What do you think? Are your guides even informing you of what the fucked up things happening to your fellow humans, although they're not exposing that to you? Does that make sense?
I would say, most of the time that those that go into them, most of them do return, but for the ones that don't return, I would say that they're used pretty much for harvesting, really. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in those type of places that I think, it shocked the hell out of most of the public if they really understood what happens below their feet.
What a chilling sentence, dude. Jesus Christ.
It's a true one, though.
I know, but it's chilling as fuck. It was great. Like, it's awesome. I mean, just wow. It just, Jesus, dude. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's horrible. It's fucked up. You talk about like, the DUMBs, deep underground military bases you're talking about with these hyper trains that go in between them. And Phil Schneider was talking about this in the 90s and allegedly had enough strength in his disability self to wrap his catheter around himself so tightly, unhumanly tightly for your own self to do, and then kill himself because of it. So yeah, there's a lot of weird shit going on, man. Men in Black. What were your thoughts? Did you see them? Did they have eyebrows? What was that? What was that like?
This was the MIB. Can I just tell you what happened before that? The MIB. Yeah. I again with my brother Sean. We were again with summer holidays. We went into the school itself this time to play. If the school was empty, my dad was at the house with my mum having a bite to eat. We went in there and we were playing hide and seek. And I went to hide and Sean counted to 10, and then, he stopped counting and I come out, and he was again standing at the time in the school. There was like the school corridor. This is in my book, and I've got images of it in the book to have a better understanding of the location and where we were. And they're taken from the actual school itself. And where we were standing, you got two inside. You got like a corridor, and on the left you got the school library. It's a small library, and you got two doors in front, which were two swing doors. And on the right hand side was the secretary's office, and Sean was standing there. He was looking through these two doors that led into the into the hall itself where the gymnasium equipment is, and there was a piano there as well, and next to the piano inside, built into the wall was the cupboard, the PE cupboard, and he was looking, and again, he was asking me, what is it? He was quite shocked by what he was seeing, and when I looked through the school doors where he was looking, and again, I we were only young, and I was quite shocked to see something that I'd never seen before, or that I don't remember seeing before, which would be a tall grey, just standing there staring at us, looking at us as we were looking at it. And this was like really tall. We were only small, but it was taller than what would a human adult would be. And it had a big head, it had big black eyes, it had long arms that literally reached down to past its kneecaps with the long fingers, and it was just standing there. And again, we had an altered state, an altered state of consciousness, where we, went into missing time. And then when we come out of this, this particular being had gone, and we were just feeling like, I was feeling frightened, afraid. Get away, got to get away from this bit, get where we were, and we ran from that location back to tell our dad and parents. And at that time, my dad had finished probably what he was doing. He was coming up back into the school and up the stairs, and he met us, up the top of the staircase. And it was Sean that told him that there was somebody in the school hall, and it wasn't human. And he was looking at us, to see if we were just joking with him, but he could see by our faces that we wasn't joking. We were like scared, and so he went off to look, but I guess not for, what we said, but for something human. And, it was probably after about 20 minutes, he returned, and, he just told us to go back home. He hadn't found anything, from what I understand. He was looking for broken glass or doors broken or locks broken, and there was nothing. So he knew something happened, but I don't think he knew what it was. He just knew something unusual had happened. But we were seeing things all the time. I don't know if Sean continued to have these experiences, but for me, it went on, and it went on, and it went on, and it went on. And it never stopped. So for me, it just carried on.
How recent was your most recent contact?
Probably about 6 months, 5 or 6 months ago. But it's mostly now. It's the military interference I get from this stuff. It's just
What's going on now? What are you experiencing with the military interference? Are you getting contacted by beings anymore? Or is it strictly like helicopters and things like that?
It's just interference outside, the body, and the nightmares and the flashbacks, and you get headaches. I can't sleep. I can't turn the light off. I have to have the light on all night long. It's just, it just goes on. You can't stop it.
Are you able to contact any of the good aliens that say that they're here, even in small number, to try and get some help with this shit?
Sorry.
Don't be.
Yeah, I don't. it's just hard. That's all. It's, you know, you have times when you don't have nothing, and then you have times when you do. It's
We're going to do an exercise together, Michael. You ready? Just change my life, okay? We're going to take a deep breath. Give me a big one, man. What the fuck was that? Give me a deep breath. All right, shoulders back. Just shoulders back. There you go. Take up space. Throw your arms out. Take up space. Let these motherfuckers know they have no power over you. Go ahead and say it.
You have no power over me.
Fucking none. They've made you feel powerless, but what you are is an empowered person that's been disempowered temporarily. And the bad part about it is that you booked time on my show, and we don't allow for that here. Shoulders back, deep breath. Tell them to fuck off. Ooh, fuck off, you douchey archons. Fuck off.
Fuck off.
Attaboy. Feel better?
Yeah.
Shoulders back, take up space. Let them know that. Don't let them arch you over like that. Fuck that. Take up that fucking space. You arms out, you head up. You let them know. Anytime that mental parasite comes in to make you feel powerless, you just remember that it's not your thoughts, that it's got nothing to do with you, and that you are taking your power back in every moment. Every present moment you were doing it. I'm so proud of you, dude. If you ever want to talk about this more after this, you let me know, okay? How are you feeling on continuing? Do you want to talk about Men in Black? Do you want to talk about maybe what's going on in Antarctica and how weird that is? The Shangri-La's was a band in the 60s that was a bunch of dudes. We can talk about that.
I mean, I could say about the MIB, it wasn't much, but, you know, after we had this experience, I was in the house on my own. My parents were in the garage. They were actually laying a floor at the time of tiles. I remember they were grey and blue type tiles from the local DIY store. And Sean went out, and I was in the house alone. My brothers, Francis and Kevin, they were a lot older. They were out socializing. But at the time, I was in the house, and I was in the school. I was in the kitchen. I was actually doing a bit of washing up for my mum. I was kneeling because I was still small to reach the sink and the taps. I remember kneeling on the chair to reach the taps. But in the adjacent room, I remember, you know, just maybe a little 5 or 10 minutes after my parents left the house and I was there on my own, I remember from a peripheral vision, seeing something moving in the room, just there in front of me. Oh, sorry, on the side of me. And I knew there was no one in the house, you see. And then I felt, you know, quite afraid. And I saw then this black figure, and he was just dressed literally from head to toe in a black suit, you know, black suit, white shirt, a black tie. And, you know, the most sinister part of that means he had black glasses wrapped around his head, you know. And it's just literally weird and out of place, you know. Where did this person, whatever it was, come from? And he was just staring at me. And at the time, I was thinking, you know, my parents are in the garage and my brothers are out and the doors are locked and he wasn't there before and he's not a ghost. He looked very solid. And then I was frozen at the time to the spot. I wasn't sure what, you know, if I could get up, what would he do? You know, at the door, it's just there, and I need to get to it to get out into the garage. And so when I looked again, he'd gone. He wasn't there. But I was thinking, you know, did he walk out into the hallway to the next where the staircase was to go upstairs or to get out, or did he just vanish? I wasn't sure, but at that time I wasn't worried about that. I just wanted to get out of the door and get away because I felt in danger. I felt this particular, whoever it was, wanted to hurt me. And I think it had something to do with what we see with this grey in the hall, because it happened literally, you know, 2 days, I guess, after that. And so I ran to the door and I was trying to open it. My hands were shaking, my heart was beating really fast, and I was looking over my shoulder to see if he was coming. He could come, you know. I didn't know if he was going to attack, what he was going to do. I just knew he wasn't supposed to be there. You know, he shouldn't have been there. Whoever it was shouldn't have been there. And I did feel from him a presence of, you know, his intentions weren't good towards me. And I did eventually get out the door and I run just outside to the garage door, and I banged on the door, and then the door opened. It's an up and over door, and the door opened slightly. And my dad come out, and I told him, that dad, there's somebody in the house, and he went in the house, and it was only then that my brother Francis was coming back from wherever he'd been, and Dad said that there's somebody in the house, and they went in and they looked, but there was nobody there. There was no doors unlocked, and the chain on the door and the bolts were still bolted, and the chain was still across. There was no windows broken, no windows opened. So again, it was another experience that my dad and my mum, were having these experiences all the time about, these. And the thing is, during the 1970s, especially in, where I grew up, there was nothing that could influence this from me and Sean, There was nothing in the media. Back then, we only had 3 channels on the TV. The TV we were only allowed to watch the TV when the parents were present. And also, someone pointed out, if it was anything to do with something influenced you, why wasn't it Jesus or Mary? Because we were strict Roman Catholics. That was the only thing we were used to seeing, this type of, these type of statues and these type of images. So, but there was nothing like these type of greys or the Nordics or the Men in Black or these type of craft. There was nothing there that could influence what we were seeing. So for anyone who was thinking that there was an influence, there was nothing there that would influence anything like that. So we were seeing these and having these experiences, these interactions. But why though? And I did have experiences with the military who were coming into this type of phenomena for me. What was that about? As a child, and as a teenager, I was seeing these type of things as well. And the thing is, they wasn't even British military; they were US military.
How could you tell?
By the uniforms. I'll share an experience with you to do with the square object. This is an experience much later on in a different area, a different location. This is why I speak about in book 2, because one of the things I didn't understand at the time is that this phenomenon follows you.
That's what they say, yeah, and it looks like that in your case too, yeah. So wherever I went in my life, it followed me. The abductions followed me. They not only followed me, they increased. And the military started to increase. The activities with the military started to get more and more sinister. But with this particular experience, I remember waking up one day. This was in the 1990s, and I woke up one day as normal, and I went into the bathroom or to have a wash, and standing at the wash hand basin, put the plug into the sink, filled it up with water, and I remember an object fell out of my mouth. Literally, it wasn't there in the night before, and it was just a little, a little miniature, very, very tiny, perfect square object, metal object, and it just fell out of my mouth, and I was thinking to myself, God, what's that? And it fell into the water, otherwise it had gone down the plug hole. There was no blood. And I didn't feel it in my mouth. So I dried it off, and I had looked at it under a magnifying glass. And when I looked, it had symbols on it. And it also had little wires, very tiny little wires inside of it. And so I didn't know what to do. And then I remember contacting the ufologist who lived locally. He was quite well known. I think he's passed now. He's died, But I went to his house. He invited me over, and his office was up in one of his top bedrooms. And he had a much more powerful, he asked me a little bit. I didn't tell him everything, but, I told him about some of my experiences and that this had just fallen out my mouth. And he said, it's fallen out your mouth. I went, yeah. And he said, that's weird. Yeah, it is weird, but...
And then he looked and he said, "You're absolutely right." He said, "There's wires sticking out of this thing, like it's almost like an implant or something, or a bugging device." And he said, "It's got symbols on it." And he said, "But what I'll do is," he said, "I have a friend at the Ministry of Defence in London." And he said, "He'll take a look at it for me, and then he'll get back to me." So then, I was a bit naive then, I wouldn't do it now. But, and I gave it to him, and I remember after about 4 weeks had passed, I didn't hear anything. And then I contacted him and said, "Have you heard anything?" And he said he contacted the MOD and he was told that this person had been moved and that the object was never returned.
Damn. And no pictures of the damn thing too, because it was like before we had cameras everywhere. Son of a bitch.
No, not that I know of. But it's just weird though what it was. I never knew. I never discovered what it was. But it's just one of these things, again, in the line of successive, experiences that is sort of high strangeness.
I'm excited for you to now, with your, newfound sovereignty in this deal, just start calling bullshit on these things. Like, take that thing and just keep it. Take a bunch of pictures of it, put it online, and expose it. Tell these fucking things whenever they visit you in their dreams to fuck off. Like, literally, like that's your new sentence when anything comes to you. Fuck off. Well,
I've had times when I've attacked them when I've had the opportunity. But most of the time, most of the time when they're there. You're thinking it, aren't you? You're thinking it, that you want to, in your head, I'm saying to them, "I'm going to kill you. I'm literally going to kill you. I'll take your life if you can." But a lot of the time you're paralyzed. You can't move, and it's different because, when you start to experience things like, when you're first doing out-of-body experiences, you may feel different sensations. You have lots of sounds that can be quite scary. It's to do with your energetic body, gearing up to move away from your physical. And sometimes you can hear sounds with your astral hearing, which is the next level outside of here. So you'll be able to hear really weird sounds. And at first they sound, whoa, like that, but you get used to them. And also, you have astral eyes, your vision is sharper, you'll see differently. But when you first begin to have these, not everyone, but most people do, when they first start to experience an out-of-body experience, they experience paralysis of the body. You're not able to move. And most people panic when they have this. But the way to break it is to remain calm. When you remain calm, it's after a few seconds it'll vanish, and you'll be able to go outside of your body. Some people panic as well when they come back into the body, because sometimes it takes a while to align back into the physical, but it always does. It never, and people worry that they won't come back, but you will come back.
What about something hopping in your body while you're out?
That can happen. It's very rare, but it can happen. I mean, it doesn't happen that often, but it is something that can happen. And often, I think the longer you're outside of your body, the more chance there is of that happening to you. I mean, I went to, Area 51. I worked for a military contractor, a long time ago. And they're one of the biggest, largest, successful contractors in the world. They contract out to everyone. But the Area 51 site is they supply the cameo dudes to Area 51, to the contractor I worked for at the time. I didn't know that at the time, though. I found out. But when I traveled outside my body once, I went into this base, Area 51, and I was actually trapped inside a containment chamber, which is used for people like myself that travel outside the body to spy. And
you can't even get into it. If you go there, you get trapped. Damn.
There are motion sensors all over the base, on the outer perimeters of the base, and the military are second to none. They're the best, really. But in regards to the technology, though, there are containment chambers that can detect somebody outside of the body moving in, or even remote viewers. They can be detected with this type of technology. This type of technology is based around the Greys, really. Their type of technology, but it's a security system. But what happens is the containment chambers hold your astral body inside there. So your body's sleeping still, your body is still resting wherever it is. And it is what will happen is that when you go into these containment chambers, they're able to interrogate you, to ask you, basically lots of different questions. And they can torture you in those type of chambers, but they can also keep you there. If they keep you there indefinite, your body will die. Cause of death will be, accidental.
Now I'm thinking that what possession may be is that people who get out of body, they get a book, right? They're like, oh, my mom got me this book on astral travel. And then they try it. They hop out of the body. They get trapped in one of these containers and then used for whatever the fuck. And then something else hops into their body and ruins their life or just takes it for a ride. Like, do you think that that's possible, that people are being auctioned off here? And that's what spirit possession and stuff's all about? Like anytime your body cannot be yours anymore?
I think there's a lot more to it.
Anyway.
I think there's a lot more to it with the demonic stuff. I've had lots of encounters with demonic type energies, again with the shadow people, and the incubus. I've had sexual attacks as a teenager would be bordered upon rape, really, which I know that's going to be difficult when I write about that, because it caused me a lot of trauma, those particular attacks, when I was a teenager. And also it's the methodology of how they approach you. They've got this sinister way of how they approach you, because it's the fear. They feed off that fear.
Yeah.
And they're getting off on it, and they know you can't move, and they know whatever they're doing, you're going to be literally terrified. And they feed off of that. And when what you really want to do.
So what's there's just such a wild thing to contemplate, man, and it brings up so many more questions and answers, as always, my friend, which is how these things go. Wanted to, before we close it out here for this one, and you will be invited back, man, wanted to just give us some hope, give us some glimmer of hope out there for the folks out there who may be experiencing something similar, or who have just heard your story and who are like, oh my God, bro, what the fuck? Just give us something hopeful to go out on here, Michael.
Well, as I said, I think going forward, I do have higher hopes that, everything will get better, and again, I'm available if anyone wants to speak about it, to share experiences and, maybe tell them to fuck off.
Fuck off. Tell them. Fuck right off. You have no access to me. That's all it is.
But I think going forward, I think that we have, as a species, even, I think there is a lot of positive things out there. As I said, there are positive races out there, and I think we will see much more of these coming closer to the next past the next decade. I think there's going to be a lot more open interactions with these positive beings. There is something involved in regards to this false alien attack scenario with the military. I think what you find is that those they want the public to believe that those that are would attack us are negative, when in actual fact they're going to be the positive ones, but they want the public on their side. The negative ones are already here, but I think the next stage is you're going to see a lot more of the positive. I know there's a lot more on the outside of the earth here now. There are a lot of craft that are here for the good. They're just different races that have been involved in this world a long time. And when you look back in ancient past, these particular races have always done good.
It's a wild place. It gets more interesting by the moment, and especially by the conversation. So speaking of good, Michael Kameron, thank you so much, dude, for all your work, for all your sharing. Your book, High Strangeness, a lifetime of alien and paranormal encounters, which is continuing, but not much more. I want to hear about your fuck-off strategy, how that goes for you. Also, his book, his Facebook, and all the ways to find him, your email will be located below so people can reach right out to you.
Sure.
Michael, thank you so much, dude. This has been outstanding. We wish you well, bro.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
At Sleep Outfitters Outlet, great sleep is a big deal. Save 40 to 60% every day on every Sealy, Stearns & Foster, and Tempur-Pedic. Queens as low as $249. Customer exchanges, closeouts, and floor samples. Inventory changes daily, so come in for your dream deal today. With no credit needed financing, expert advice, and up to 60% off retail, it's never been easier to get the sleep and savings you deserve. Go to sleepoutfittersoutlet.com for financing details and to find a store near you.